Welcome to the Firewall Analyzer Training Part 1, Season 2. Before we start, I would like to know if you can hear me and see the presentation. Please confirm the same in the chat panel. A brief introduction about myself. I'm Mauli Srinivasan, product expert in Firewall Analyzer. I have more than 6 years experience in product marketing. So what is a firewall analyzer? So firewall analyzer is a monitoring and reporting software. It is a policy and log analytics tool. Now let us look at a more important question in hand. Why should one go for firewall analyzer? For this, I would like to propose a scenario in the next slide. Say you want to get fit and hence you buy a Fitbit. Do you think that just by buying and wearing a Fitbit, you're going to get fit? The obvious answer is no. So what do we do? Instead, analyzing your performance in the gym and incorporating changes at regular intervals will help you achieve the desired fitness goals. Similarly, for a healthy network, it is of utmost importance that all your network security devices are continuously monitored and necessary changes are made to optimize the device performance. Similar to how a Fitbit continuously monitors our body, Firewall Analyzer continuously monitors the firewall. Now that you know what and why you need a Firewall Analyzer for, let us look at the agenda for the day. Number one, we are going to look at some of the basics of Firewall Analyzer. Next, we're going to look at how to fetch policies and configuration from your firewall device to the Firewall Analyzer. Once we fetch policies and configurations, we're going to look at rule management, how to optimize firewall rules, change management, how to monitor configuration changes. Finally, we are going to look at how to generate compliance and security audit reports. Listed here is the basic installation requirement. Firewall Analyzer can be installed in a Windows or a Linux system. All the syslogs received by the Firewall Analyzer by default is stored in PostgreSDB. If needed, you can also configure the syslogs to be stored in the MS SQL Server. The disk space and RAM size mentioned here are the minimum requirement. The same might vary depending on the number of devices being analyzed and the number of devices sending log information to the Firewall Analyzer. With this basic requirement fulfilled, you can install Firewall Analyzer. Okay. Now let us look at the steps to fetch device rules from your firewall device into the Firewall Analyzer. Step 1 is to configure your firewall device to generate syslogs at UDP port 1514, which would act as the listener port for Firewall Analyzer. So once you receive the syslog from the firewall to the Firewall Analyzer, credential profiles can be set for that specific device in the Firewall Analyzer. Step 1 and 2 will be covered in detail in the next session on 23rd April. Step 3, so once you set the credentials, you have to now fetch rules and configuration from your firewall and add device to the device rule. The following are the prerequisite ports that need to be free and the respective protocols that would be used. Port number 22 uses SSH/SCP, port number 69 TFTP, port number 23 for Telnet, and finally, last but not the least, as mentioned before, UDP port 1514 for the Firewall Analyzer to receive syslogs. Once we establish a connection with the following protocols: Telnet, Telnet TFTP, SSH, SSH TFTP, and SCP, We can add the device in the device rule by fetching the rules and configurations from the firewall. We can fetch rules and configuration by two methods. Number one, you can directly fetch rules and configuration from your firewall. Given below is a sample screenshot on how to add device info. Given on the left is the CLI of the firewall device. We have taken a case of Cisco firewall. On the right hand side is the firewall analyzer product UI. First, you need to enter the username, next the password, then the prompt, enable command, enable password, enable prompt. I will show you how the same can be done in the product UI. So this is the firewall analyzer product UI. Click on settings and under firewall server, click on device rule and click on add. Once you click on add, you select the firewall device, and as I mentioned before, you have to enter the login name. I'm just giving test credentials out here. Enter the password, enable prompt, enable command, enable password, and enable prompt. Once you do this, you can click test and check if your credentials are right. As I mentioned before, these are just test credentials. Obviously, they'll be wrong, so it will be marked as wrong. But once you enter the correct credentials, you can hit next, and then you can fetch rules from your firewall. You can generate security audit. You can also schedule when at what period of time you want to fetch the rules and configuration from your firewall device to the firewall analyzer. And you also can generate change management reports. Not only you can generate change management report with monitors all the configuration changes made to your firewall. In case you want to send alert messages or notifications whenever a configuration change is made, you can also configure that out here by entering your email, configuring your email or your phone number. You can also send these reports, schedule change management reports directly to your email on a daily or a weekly basis. Once you do this, click on save. The moment you have entered the right credentials, a tick mark will be shown here. As I told you, I was just entering the wrong credentials, test credentials, which means that a slash will be given. So once you do this, all the rules and configuration from your firewall has been fetched into the firewall analyzer. So in case you have multiple firewalls and you want to add the device info in device rule, doing this one by one is an arduous task. A simpler way is to create a credential profile and apply that to different firewalls. In case you're using the same credential profiles for multiple firewalls. Let us look at how this can be done in the product UI. So again, go to settings and under firewall server, click on credential profile and click on add. Once you click on add, set a profile name and give all the credentials, then select the device and then give all the necessary credentials. Enable command, enable password, enable prompt, and hit save. Once you hit save, this credential profile has been created and you can assign this credential profile to multiple firewall devices. So once you do this, your firewall, it will directly fetch rules and configuration from your firewall. In case this is under the condition that all these firewall devices should have the same credentials. The second way to add device in the device rule is to directly upload rules and configuration. So for this, what do you need? First, you can export the configuration file from your firewall. Next, you have to create the rule file manually. So what is this rule file? It is a text file with each rule listed in a single line in the respective order, and each rule needs to be separated by a comma. So you need to create this file. Once you have these two files, you can import the rule file and the configuration file respectively and add the device to the device rule. Let us look at how this is done in the product UI. So again, go to settings. In settings, click on device rule. Once you click on device rule, click on add and select a firewall device and select file. So once you select file, as I mentioned before, you need to upload the manually created rule file and you need to upload the configuration file that you downloaded from your firewall. Once you hit import, your rules and configurations will be fetched and the device will be listed under the device rule. So once you fetch rules and configuration from the firewall, you get access to 3 reports. First is the rule management report, second is the change management report, and third is the security audit and compliance report. So now let us look at a scenario. Jim is a new network admin who has joined a company. And in his company, there have been a lot of network security issues. As a preliminary task, he has been asked to do the following things. First, optimize firewall policies and rules. Second, monitor and audit changes made to the firewall configuration. Third, submit a detailed compliance and security audit report. Let us look at what are the challenges faced by Jim and how he overcomes these challenges. So let us look at the first task in hand for Jim, which is to optimize firewall policies. So Jim has the following challenges in this company. So it's a 10-year-old company and there are nearly more than 1,000 rules for him to review. He has to review each rule manually and has no direct visibility into the existing rules. Since it is an old company and rules have not been reviewed from day one, there are a lot of duplicate and unused rules. More than one security admin have written the rules and hence rules are highly unoptimized. Not only this, as I mentioned earlier, the company has more than 1,000 rules and hence any new rule that Jim plans to add might impact the existing rule set negatively. So let us look at how Firewall Analyzer's rule management report can help Jim optimize the firewall rules. First is the policy overview report. This report gives you visibility to all the rules that have been written on the firewall. So you can filter the rules according to allowed or denied rules, inbound or outbound rules, inactive rules, logging disabled rules, or any permissible rule. You can also download and analyze this list of rules. So let us look at how this is in the product UI. So click on compliance and under compliance, click on rule management. In rule management, click on policy overview. In policy overview, first select the firewall device that you want to see all the rules for. So I've selected a FortiGate firewall out here, and given here is a list of all the rules that are there in the firewall. Not only that, it also gives the complete information about the rules that are there in the firewall. It gives the rule number, source, destination, source interface, destination interface, service, and whether it's an allowed or a denied rule. A denied rule will be shown in this symbol. And as I mentioned before, you can also filter these rules according to allowed rules, denied rules, inbound rules, outbound rules, inactive rules, disabled rules, and any overly permissive rules or any overly permissive services. So with this, Jim now gets visibility into the complete list of rules in the firewall. Now that Jim has solved the visibility issue, he has to address the second issue. So as mentioned before, the rules have been written by multiple security admins and have not been reviewed for over a long period of time. Because of this, there are a lot of anomalous rules which affect the performance of the firewall. Firewall Analyzer identifies the following rule anomalies: shadow anomaly, redundancy anomaly, generalization anomaly, correlation anomaly, and grouping anomaly. In this slide, we have given detailed examples of all the anomalies detected by Firewall Analyzer. Now let us look at how anomalies are shown in the product UI. So click on compliance. In compliance, click on policy optimization. So as I told you before, all the anomalies that are detected are listed here. So select the firewall device which you want to check the anomalies for. So here is all the anomalies that are listed. So redundancy anomalies, generalization anomalies, rules which have redundancy, generalization, correlation, shadow, and grouping are all listed here. You can also filter any specific anomaly and check which are the rules which have generalization anomaly and all the other anomalies that I mentioned before. So having gotten this, Jim can go back to his firewall, make the necessary changes, and try to remove the anomalies so as to improve the performance of the firewall. So next is the rule reorder. So with multiple security admins writing rules, the rules are not optimally arranged. For example, say that a new rule was written recently and this has taken the position number 500. But it is a rule which has a lot of hits. In other words, it's a frequently used rule. Every time the firewall processor has to go through all the other 499 rules to get to this rule. This takes a hit on the firewall processing speed. Firewall Analyzer provides a rule reorder reports which help you solve this problem. Let us look at how this report looks in the product UI. So click on compliance. Under rule management, click on rule reorder. In rule reorder, you have the list of suggestions for rule reorder, and you also are given an estimated performance improvement. So if rule 22 is moved from position 7 to position 3, there's a chance that you have a 20% improvement in firewall performance. Given this, so Jim can go back to his firewall, make the changes, and check if there's a performance improvement, and he can do this for all the suggested rules out here. So next is the rule cleanup report. So since this is a 10-year-old company, Jim's company is a 10-year-old company, there's a possibility that there are a lot of rules which is not used. And since it is out of place, the same rules might be used to breach the network. With the Firewall Analyzer rule cleanup report, you get a detailed list of all the unused rules, unused objects, and unused interfaces. Let us look at how this report looks in the product UI. So under compliance, under rule management, click on rule cleanup. And as I mentioned before, you get the list of all the unused rules. unused objects, and unused interfaces. So it is recommended that you first deactivate these rules for a short period of time, and once you find that there is no impact in the network, the same can be safely removed. This should not only make your network safer, but also aid in the firewall processing speed. Firewall. The simplest of errors can trigger a massive security loophole that can either allow malicious traffic to sneak in or block legitimate traffic and disrupts normal business. With the firewall analyzer's rule impact analysis, you can easily determine if a proposed rule is going to impact the existing rule set negatively. The rule impact feature does the following. It checks the proposed rule against the existing rule base for anomalies. It suggests an optimal rule order by analyzing the proposed rule for rule complexity and anomalies. It identifies any overly permissive destination interfaces for the proposed new rule. It, it detects and reports on service, application, and interface level threats. It singles out blacklisted IP addresses that are used in the proposed new rule. And it also provides a risk assessment for relevant service, application, and interface ports. Let us look at how this report looks. Let's keep it as any. Then we can select the destination. Let us enter the destination. And then let us select a source interface. Let us say it's WAN 1. And then let us select a destination interface, eternal. And we can select the service. We can select this as FTP. And we can, and finally, you have to select whether it's an allow or a deny rule. Let's select as an allow rule. Now, if you hit generate report, you get this report as to saying, so as I mentioned before, once you enter the rule details, you get the following inferences. Okay, so the anomaly details, as you can see from the report, rule 100 is redundant with rule 18. Now, Jim has to actually rewrite this rule in such a way that it does not result in this redundancy. Next, a rule reorder recommendation is provided. So hence moving the rule from position 24 to position 10, there's a possibility that there's a 57% improvement in the firewall performance. So instead of placing it at rule number 20, critical, and if you'll be able to transfer files using this service or application, and how prone it is to misuse. Having given this, so it gives a briefing as to what are the threats, possible threats, by writing this rule. And it also lists the interface level threats. Next, you also get a list of blacklisted IP addresses. So under this IP, you have so many blacklisted IP addresses. So Jim has to make sure to avoid these blacklisted IPs since they are a security threat. Next, finally, you get a risk assessment for service application level ports and interface level ports. So having got this, Jim can go back to the firewall, write the optimal rule, and make sure that the optimal rule is executed in his firewall rather than an inoptimal rule being executed in the firewall. Now that Jim has reviewed all the rules and made necessary changes in his firewall to improve the performance of the rules, let us look at the second task he has been assigned: monitoring and recording changes made to firewall configuration. That is the second task. So what are the challenges that he faces? So one of Jim's employees in his team left the company, and it is suspected that he did some damage to the firewall configuration. But this has gone unnoticed, and they have not been able to identify the exact specifics of the changes made, and they want to avoid this in the future. And hence, the second task that Jim has been assigned is to monitor and record all the changes to the firewall, to his firewall. Let us look at how Firewall Analyzer's change management report helps Jim solve this issue. So as mentioned before, changes made to firewall configurations had gone unnoticed. So, but with Firewall Analyzer, say if Greg makes a change to the firewall, this is recorded by Firewall Analyzer. Firewall Analyzer does not only track who made the change, but also tracks when it was done and what was the change that was done. Let us look at how this report looks in the product UI. Under compliance, click on change management. And in change management, select the specific firewall device. Once you get the firewall, select this firewall device. So as I mentioned before, if Greg made a change, Greg has made a change here apparently, you get to know exactly the time at which Greg has made the change. So April 16, 2019, 8:15 a.m. he has made a change. And not only that, you also get to know exactly what it is that Greg has changed. So these are the configuration changes. So any configuration change that has been made is listed in blue color. A configuration that has been deleted is listed in red color, and configuration that has been added is listed in green color. So with this, you get to know exactly when, what, and how Greg has made changes to the firewall configuration. So with change management reports, you can not only schedule change management reports, but also set alarm notifications directly to your email and SMS whenever there's a change made to the firewall configuration. So you can also schedule change management reports on a weekly or a daily basis. This was already shown when we were adding the device in the device rule. With the change management report, Jim gets complete visibility over who changes what, and also gets real-time alerts on all the changes that are made. And thus, Jim has successfully completed his second task. Now let us proceed to the next use case. So Jim's company need to be compliant with multiple security standards, but they're falling short with a lot of them. This has affected them so much that they have started losing customers as their compliance is not up to date. So Jim has been assigned a task to submit a detailed compliance report and the security audit report. Let us look at how Firewall Analyzer helps Jim solve this issue. Firewall Analyzer provides out-of-the-box compliance standard reports, which includes SANS, PCI DSS, NIST, ISO, NERC, CIP. This helps you periodically check for compliances and also lets you assess your firewall security. Now, let us look at how this report looks in the product UI. So, under compliance, click on standard and select the firewall device which you want to review your compliance standard for. So as you can see, the given firewall is not at all up to standard for multiple compliance standards. It is only 50% compliance for SANS, 60% compliance on NIST, 55% compliant for PCI DSS, 28% compliant on ISO, and 58% compliant for NERC CIP. On clicking more, you get a list of all the sections which he has failed in, which he has passed, and all the sections which he has to manually verify. I'll show this as a case in the next slide. So Jim is working in a card-based company which deals with a lot of financial transactions and hence have to be compliant with PCI DSS. So let's look at how they are fared with PCI DSS, and we can see that they are only 55% compliant with PCI DSS. So we need to know what are the sections that they have failed in. So click on more, and you can see that all the sections of PCI DSS are listed here on top. You also get the sections in PCI DSS that Jim's company has failed in, and you get the sections which Jim's company has cleared, and you also get the star denotes that you have to manually verify this section. So let us look at a failed section 1.1.7. Review firewall rule sets at least once in every 6 months. So this, you also get a section recommendation saying that periodic review of rule set would help you understand the probability of risk and vulnerability in your configuration. Firewall Analyzer is capable of reviewing rule set periodically. You can schedule it from compliance dashboard. So if you do this and be compliant with it, you will get a tick mark. And so Jim can go back to his firewall, make sure that he gets all his sections ticked off, and then come back to Firewall Analyzer, again fetch rules and configuration. And if he updates the data here, he would be more compliant after making the changes in that particular section. Next is the security audit report. So Firewall Analyzer's security audit reports helps you identify the configuration and loopholes in your firewall. It lists events based on criticality. So it lists how many events are critical, high, medium, low, and info. It provides a detailed finding as to what is the impact on the network and also suggests solutions that can help prevent security events. So let us look at how this looks in the product UI. So under compliance, click on security audit. So as you can see that for multiple firewalls, the security audit is available. So let us check on a section, for example, section 2.2. In section 2.2, or let's select section 2.3, wherein it is a critical alert. So clear text protocol are services that provide no encryption, and hence it is easy for attackers to get their hands on the data. So with this, the impact, that's why is critical. So The impact level is also given. The ease in which an attacker can get into the system is also listed, and a recommendation is also provided as to how to fix this configuration loophole. Having gotten this, Jim can go back to his firewall, make the necessary changes, and clear off all the configuration loopholes that are there in a system. To summarize, Firewall Analyzer is a policy and configuration monitoring tool. It and we also support more than 50 firewall vendors and more than 200 devices. Firewall Analyzer provides the rule management report for the list of for the given list of firewalls. The complete list will be shared to you via mail. We'll give you this list via mail. You can go to this link and check out the complete. And we have also come up with API-based rule fetching for Checkpoint, Palo Alto, and so forth. And we'll be extending this to other firewall vendors also in the future. So we have a lot more exciting topics to cover on the next training session, which is scheduled on 23rd. To know more on how to set real-time alarm notifications in Firewall Analyzer, and to get an understanding of the practical application on how to secure a network.
All right, so good morning, everybody, and my name is Arvind Lennon, and I'm working with Firewall Analyzer from past 6 years right now, and I'm expertised in Firewall Analyzer product for support and training, and done a lot of implementations on the customer sites as well. So I will be taking care of the Q&A session today, and will be helping you out with the questions that we have received in today's session, and some of the interesting questions. If we have missed some, we will be able to send you out emails of those questions that we have received, the complete set of questions that we have received, and with the answers of them as well, right? So let's go into the question and answer session. So the first question that we have received today is the devices is added in Firewall Analyzer, but not getting any data to show. So this is one of the major issue that we receive in support side from the Firewall Analyzer customers most of the time. And the most common, so there can be many scenarios for this kind of issue, but the most common issue that we see right now is that what we're going to talk about. So this is a Firewall Analyzer product. So let me just show you how to actually check whether your application is receiving your logs exported by the firewall or not. So you have to just go into the settings and firewall server and syslog server. Here we have something called live packet counts. So when you click on here, you will see the devices that are sending the live packets. You can just click on refresh, and you can check like whether your packets are getting refreshed or not. That means your live packets are being received from these number of firewall devices to the application. Okay, the next important thing is Firewall Analyzer completely depends upon the syslogs, and the data is completely dependent upon the syslogs that we receive from the firewall. And it is very important that the time that is the time zone that is updated on the firewall and on the syslog server, or sorry, firewall and the Firewall Analyzer server where the Firewall Analyzer application is installed should be same. In case if there is a discrepancy between the time period that is in the firewall and in the Firewall Analyzer installed server, in that case you will not receive or you will not see the data being shown up in the UI. That is because we completely depend upon the log format and the time of the logs that we receive. So you can check on like what is the time set on the logs, syslogs that we are receiving from the firewall. So just by clicking on the live syslog viewer. So these are the syslog servers that we are receiving syslogs from various different devices, right? So when you click on the live packet viewer for any particular port and any particular syslog server, you will see what are the syslogs being received from that particular on that particular port. So and here you can, when you just stop it, you can see what is the time that is set on that particular log, based on which we capture this log and put that information into our database, right? So to show up any data into the UI, we need this log and the time for this firewall analyzer installed server, and the syslog that is being exported by that firewall should be same. In case if there is a difference, you will not be able to see the information in the UI. So this is one of the common cause that we received, for which in the case of like where the firewalls are getting added but not shown the data into the UI, right? So this is one of the important points. So next question that we have received is, does your application support configuration analysis for checkpoint devices? Definitely, yes. So we support configuration analysis for checkpoint firewall. So there are right now in two ways. Basically, in the older version of checkpoint firewall, where we only had the information, or where we only had the option to fetch the logs from the checkpoint firewall using the LEA configuration, right? In those kind of scenarios, or in the older version of checkpoint firewall, which is below 80.10 R80.10, there we can actually export the configuration, the rule configuration and the complete configuration from the checkpoint firewall, and can import the logs in here, and based on the imported logs we can analyze the rules and the configurations that is being configured in the checkpoint firewall, and we will able to show you the information in the UI. In the latest version of checkpoint, from the latest version of checkpoint, from that is R80.10, we have the API option right now, which can get the firewall rules, the configured rules on your firewall, and the configuration from the API, and can show you the information under the rule management and compliance and configuration change management, right? So when you see here, for example, when you come here under settings, firewall server, we have something called device rule. So device rule is one of the important tab that we use and that our customers use on day-to-day operations in firewall analyzer, right? So most of the configuration based analysis that we do are done under the device rule tab under settings. So settings, firewall server, device rule, right? So, and also we have some help tips as well to actually export the checkpoint firewall rules. So when you click here, it will take you to the option, take you to the web page where it will clearly give you the directions on how you can fetch rules from your checkpoint firewall. So it gives you a detailed information on how you can export the logs from the firewall, and how you can actually import it in firewall analyzer for analysis. And once you update that, you should be able to see. So like for example, here we have this R80.10 version, which is the latest version, one of the latest versions, and where it supports API. And here we have added this firewall using API. So when you click on here, you can see it is added based with the API information for the firewall, right? Okay, so let's go into the next question. So how to get my device to show up information for unused rules? So for unused rules, we need to add. It's very important to add the device to in the device rule option. So with the so we get the used rule information from the firewall using the syslogs that has been exported by the firewall, and the unused rule information is being we receive the unused rule, or we show you the unused rule information in firewall analyzer using the configuration file that we fetch. So we get the configuration from the firewall, we analyze the configuration, we compare the configuration with the live syslog, and based on this comparison we show you which rules are unused or cleanup rules. So those kind of information. So first you have to just add your devices here. So once your device is added under device rule and configured properly, and once it started fetching the configuration, you can get the information and you can see the information under the rule management row. So when you click on here under rule management, so we have something called rule cleanup, where it will show you the unused rules, unused objects, and unused interfaces on your firewall, right? So let's move on to the fourth question here. Is it possible to identify anomalies in the configured rules using firewall analyzer? So yes, we as Molly, I took the session today. He explained you about the rule management and the policy optimization information. So yes, definitely it can be done. So in the policy optimize, so once your devices is added under the device rule under settings, firewall analyzer under device rules, once it is added and once your devices started fetching configurations and rules, you can see the data showing up for those devices under all the tabs under rule management. All right, so the policy optimization is one of the important tab which gives you the information about the anomalies that can be available in your configuration, in your rule configuration basically, right? So we have the categorization based on redundancy, generalization, correlation, shadowing, and grouping. So each one has its own definition and own like backdrops which can cause problem and degrade the performance of your firewall. So you can see for like here we have only generalization, we have one, and shadowing we have four. So when you click on like generalization, it will show you what is the generalized rule, and it will show you what is the shadow rule. So based on these settings that we have captured from the log, so it will show you that, right? So you can easily identify which rule is actually having the problem. You can easily identify that with the each category that we have created, and category based filtering that we have given to you in the product for the policy optimization. You can easily identify which rules are actually creating problems, and you can reconfigure your rules immediately, right? So which will immediately improve the performance of your firewall. So basically, as we all know, firewall is completely based on the rule configuration. So the rules has to be properly configured and properly optimized. So product will definitely help you to do that. So let's go into the fifth question here. So how to update interface speed in the firewall? So so as you know, as I already said, firewall analyzer completely depends upon the syslogs that is being exported by the firewall devices. Right. So when the syslog comes in, we get the device information based on the device host name or the IP address as it comes in from the firewall, and we get the interface level details from the syslogs itself. So we'll get what are the interfaces that are sending flows, and how much information or how much bandwidth they are using, and what are the details or what are the bandwidth and who the top talkers they are using from the interfaces. And by default, when we receive the information from a firewall, we get the interfaces as well, and by default the interface speed will be set as 1 Mbps, right? So we don't update the speed automatically. So there are two ways to update the interface speed for the interfaces. One is using SNMP and other is manually. All right, so if you want to do like manual update, so you can just speed update. So you can just select the interface. So basically you have to come under the inventory tab, interfaces. Under interfaces will list up the interfaces that we have discovered from various different firewall devices. So it actually categorizes so how many interfaces that we have what are devices and how many interfaces that we have on each device, and based on that we have listed up the interfaces here. So when you drill down to interface, you will see the complete details on the interface based traffic and the top talkers that's happening from that particular top conversations and other details that is happening based on a particular interface, right? And it's very important that you update the interface speed to get the proper traffic statistics from the interfaces, right? So interfaces and the devices. So to update the speed, you can just select the interface on which you want to do the update, click on the edit interface, and here you have an option to set the uplink and downlink speed. Make sure that you update it in, so it's already in kilobits per second, Okay, so make sure that whatever the value that you type here, it calculates in kilobits per second, right? So in case if you it's not in it's not in bits per second, it's in kilobits per second. So based on that, you can manually update the interface speed, or you can use SNMP. So if you have SNMP configured on the device, you can just use SNMP to update the interface speed. So once you do an update here, we will be able to get the interface speed information and the interface name from the syslog from the firewall itself, and will update it automatically using the SNMP community that you have provided, right? So yeah, so that's one of the important thing, and based on which we show you the traffic details. So getting in proper traffic statistics for each interface, make sure that you have updated proper interface speed and proper device speed, right? All right. So let's move on to the sixth question. So is it possible to ignore a line or configuration so that it won't appear as a configuration change in the change management report? Right. So in some cases, we will see like there are some common, for example, when you do show running command on a particular on a Cisco device, it will pull up the running configuration, and it will say in the beginning as building configuration. All right, building configuration, and then it will build up the complete configuration and pull up in the SSH UI, right? So in that case, you will in the startup configuration you will not have that building configuration line, but in running configuration you will have that line. So but it's not an actual change, right? It's not a change, but it will show up as a change because we detect the changes in the firewall analyzer line by line. So we match line by line on the startup and running, and we match the configuration on each line, and then we'll show you if there is a difference in the line, or if there is any modification in the line, or if there is a line been deleted. We'll update you based on that. Okay, so configuration matching and configuration change detection that happens in firewall analyzer is based on the line by line matching between the previous and the current running configuration, right? So in some cases, if you do not want some lines to be identified or some lines to be checked under the for the change management, you can ignore them under settings. So we have the option here called exclude criteria. So here you can create the exclude criteria based on your device type. So when you create an exclude criteria, so you have to just select the device on which you want to create the criteria, and you can just put the criteria here contains let's say building configuration. So if you do that, so if the configuration has that building configuration line, it will ignore that configuration line. It will ignore that part of the configuration in the change management report. So that's how it will work. So it will be helpful in case of like if you if you know that that line is going to modify, but you do not want to show up as a change, then you can create an exclusion for that kind of information or for that particular device. All right, so let's move on to the seventh question here. All right, so how to get immediate notification for configuration change if anyone perform those changes? So yes, we can do that. So it's again comes down to the rule management tab. So when you go to rule management, and when you add a device, basically, so when you provide all the details here and click on next, so you will have this option to schedule for the rule fetching and security audit report, and we have something called change report, which you have to enable so that you will get a notification whenever there's a change happening. And this notification option that we have will give you that notification, right? So you can just provide your email address here. So whenever there's a change happening, and immediately you will get notified that there's a change happening on that particular device, and the backup will automatically trigger and will show you what are the changes that happened during that particular time. So those notifications can be sent to you using the notification option. And also we do have the schedule option. to, like, in case if you do not want the notification and only want to like run a schedule and get a report of all the changes that are happening from your devices or from that particular device, you can actually schedule a report to run like every day or every 7 days, and get a report of like previous week or last 7 days or previous month or last 30 days, like that. And once you schedule it, we'll automatically send you this report on that 7th day or 10th day based on your configuration, and give you a complete PDF or CSV report and let you know like what are the changes happened in that particular device on which you're configuring it. All right. All right. So the eighth question is, there is a report to verify who changed the configuration. So yes, so as already been told by Mauli in the training session today, so we have this under the in the report in the compliance change management. So you can generate, so we will show you all the changes that have happened in the UI. As you can see in the UI, you can export the configuration report from the UI. So right, so when you click on it, so it will be generated as a report, and you can just export it as a PDF and see what are the changes happened, who did the change based on the time period for like today, and custom time periods as well. You can set the time period and you can set for different devices and generate a report on demand. All right. Okay, is it possible to update rules and complaints reports on demand? So yes, so it again stands out to be under the device rule tab. So on demand rule fetching and security audit report generation, that can happen in the rule manager. So once you added the device in the rule management tab, so you will be able to see at what the last time the configuration changes has been pulled, and you can click on, so these are all on-demand options that we have in the product. So when you click on this refresh option, it will actually fetch the configuration immediately. So once you click on it, then we have the on-demand fetch rule option, and we have the export configuration file option, and also we have the security generate security audit report option if the security audit report is being scheduled for this report. All right. So whenever you do a configuration immediate configuration fetch and check for the compliance report, it will be generated using the latest configuration that we have fetched from the device. Right. So the last question that we have received and today was, can we update rule reorder position change automatically in the firewall devices? Right. So we, as an monitoring tool, so we only monitor and give you identify, analyze the information. We do not have a management access, or we are not management level product to actually send out or push changes to the firewalls. So that's the reason we do not have the option to actually send out the rule reorder changes on the device side. So at the moment, we only have the option to show you and to guide you like where the position of your rule can be in your firewall. That is available under the rule management and rule reorder. So when you click on the rule reorder, so we will actually let you know and suggest you that your fourth rule is maximum used on the device, so it can be moved to first position so that it can increase your performance by 80% than the current performance. So we can only suggest you that you can actually change, you have to manually change it, or you can use our other products like a network configuration manager to send out configuration change into the devices. Right. All right, so that's all about the question and answer session, and I'll give the session across to my colleague, and he will be taking over. Thank you.
Hey, this is Mauli again. So if you need more help on the product, kindly visit our help page or post questions in our forum. Feel free to reach out to us, to our support team via mail or via phone. We'll be sharing this PPT. So yeah, and if you want to know more about firewall rule, policy, ACL best practices, firewall change request process, firewall change management best practices, and firewall compliance, download our latest free ebook on 10 firewall best practices for network security admins. This download link is given in the PPT and the same will be shared to you, or go to ebooks.firewallfwanalyzer.com and you can download the same. Thank you for joining us today. I hope this session was useful to you, and please fill the survey and provide the rating for this presentation. Rating is in the scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the highest and 1 being the lowest. For any future training session, we will keep you posted, and in case you want a more detailed explanation of the product, you can request for a personalized demo. Thank you.